Maybe you've taken a few classes here or there, and they served their purpose, and you moved on. But what if I told you those credits, the ones you thought were just check boxes somewhere, could actually add up to something? A credential, a pathway, a door you didn't even know was there. That moment when the pieces click, when you realize you're closer than you thought, that's what we're here for tonight. I'm Loy from GCC's online learning team, and this is episode 13, NSD versus Degree, Hidden Truths. Now, we've brought in somebody tonight who spends a lot of time helping students figure out their best path. Deb Falk from Admissions. Deb, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in your role here at GCC.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Loy, for having me. This is my very first podcast, so I'm excited to be here. So I live in a little town called Lima, just southeast of Rochester, about an hour away from the main campus in Batavia. I began with the GCC family in 2012, serving as a campus center advisor in Lima. In 2016, I joined the Student Success Center as a student success coach, where I was trained in many enrollment functions: financial aid, advisement and registration, student accounts, career services, and I helped students achieve their goals successfully, and I did that through 2023. 2023, I decided it would be nice to change my role a little bit with Genesee Community College, and I became an admissions counselor, taking the very same information I was using at the Student Success Center right onto the road to area high schools, college fairs. We travel far and wide: Syracuse, Watkins Glen. We host open houses here on site. And Accepted Student Day. And for me, my personal philosophy is that one size does not fit all when it comes to college. Everybody's on a different pathway, and that's one of the reasons I stay at a community college for that purpose. I can say I've lived many lives as a student. I've been a traditional student. I've been a stop-out student, which means I took a break. I say it wasn't just a year. I took not a gap year, but a gap decade. I had some life issues that came up. So when I returned, I was considered an adult student. And then while I was an adult student, I also was considered not seeking a degree. So I can offer multiple perspectives, hopefully, to help students on their journey.
Oh, well, this is no surprise to any of our regular listeners, but I joined you in that stop-out decade.
Okay.
It's funny because sometimes your credits have an expiration date, so you have to finish within the 10 years. And I was like right at that cutoff.
Yeah.
Right at that limit.
No, not for my degree program. I know it's common for like biologies if you're looking at healthcare fields and things like that.
Right.
Yes.
Right. All right. So let's start at the beginning. So we're throwing around this term NSD. What does it actually mean? What are those letters?
So NSD is an acronym for Not Seeking a Degree or Non-Matriculated Student. That means students are coming to GCC not enrolled in a degree program per se, although maybe it is their plan to complete a degree at another institution, and they're just taking some courses with us that consider them as not seeking a degree with us at GCC.
Okay. And so, you mentioned a student who is looking for a degree elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
What other kind of student might come to GCC and be classified as NSD or categorized as NSD?
So many opportunities to be an NSD student at Genesee Community College. So oftentimes we have high school students in a program we called ACE. So if you're not a graduate of high school, but you would like to enroll in a class, a college level course, you would be considered non-matriculated or NSD. We have a homeschool population. They cannot be matriculated according to New York State regulations. They have to prove that they've earned a high school degree, New York State equivalency, through the education department here in New York State. So they're with us for a season while they're going through that process, earning 24 credits, and then they apply to earn that credential. So we also have some students that enroll as NSD students because they belong to another institution say SUNY Geneseo, SUNY Brockport, or even, further away. Perhaps they didn't do well in a course they needed to complete their program and it's only offered in the fall or only offered in the spring. Oftentimes they will reach out to us and see if we can find an equivalent course, and they will cross-register. So that means they'll stay at their home institution because their long-term goal is to graduate with a degree in their home institution, but take a course with us to help transfer that back so they've met the requirement.
So they're actually looking for a degree. They're just not looking for a degree from us.
Right, that's correct.
Okay, so we call them NSD. Yeah. I actually think that I end up speaking with a bunch of those students because we're one of the few colleges in New York that has a fully online A&P class, or set of A&P classes.
Yes.
And if you're wondering what I mean by A&P, anatomy and physiology. So if you're a nursing student or a healthcare student or physical therapy, there's a few other programs.
Right.
And nobody else, well, I would say nobody else, but there
very
are not
few.
Very few have an A&P that's fully online, and we do.
Yeah. Even over the interim.
Yeah.
If you're really motivated, you can take the course in 5 weeks.
And you will do nothing else for 5
That's
weeks.
right. Goodbye holidays. Yes, exactly.
All right. But you do get ahead, so it's a choice you can make.
Yep.
And every winterim students make that choice.
Yep.
So, so that's really helpful. So we know what kind of students that we're talking about, and what might a typical NSD student look like? Give us a kind of a profile, if you will.
Sure. Well, I can start by profiling myself. So when I took that decade to stop out and attend to my family obligations, I returned as an adult student to Roberts Wesleyan University. So they accepted all my community college credits, but found that I was shy 1 or 2 courses. So I was able to enroll at Genesee Community College and transfer those back to complete my program with them. So I myself, that's where I come in saying I was an NSD student. Also, other opportunities. Student may be employed. Maybe they'd like to further their career opportunities by adding what we call a micro-credential. Maybe they are looking to explore furthering education for enrichment, take a photography or ceramics class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went back to school, and there was a period of time when I was working, and we needed somebody who understood a little bit about graphic design as part of the job. I didn't want to hire a graphic designer, so my employer actually sent me to school to get a graphic design class. And that was kind of nice.
Yeah. We do have some of that too, where a third party will pay. So if they're already employed elsewhere, but they need some accounting credentials or a little more healthcare, depending on where they work, oftentimes they can see if they can, get some financial help that way.
Right. I know too, we've got New York State teacher assistants have to have a certain number of credits every year to progress to the next stage of teacher assistants. I believe it's 9 credits a year. I can't remember exactly, but so they're just looking for college credits, and then sometimes someone in our teacher education program will talk with them about what specific sort of teacher education they want to do, what kind of classroom they're in and what credits might work best for them, but they're also NSD students.
Yeah.
Right, so I guess we've got a broad spectrum of reasons why students might be NSD, and so let's talk about making it a little bit more interesting. What do NSD students often not realize about the credits they're earning? Like, what are they missing?
Well, they might find that they're closer to completing an associate's degree with Genesee Community College than they even realize. Maybe they also stopped out. Perhaps they started as a traditional student at another college. They've earned some credits. They left the education for a little bit, went out and pursued a career or a family, whichever. They may find if they take a few courses here with us that they are closer to completing those 62 to 64 credits than they think.
Right. And you also mentioned micro-credentials. So I think a lot of students don't really know what that means. I mean, if I understand micro-credentials myself, they're really, really new. Yes. I think we're still kind of getting our our heads wrapped around what those are here at the college. So can you break that down for us? Like, what is a micro-credential, and how does that work when it comes to these students?
So absolutely. So we offer, I want to say probably close to 20 different micro-credentials. So for example, maybe you are a paraprofessional at a high school and they're looking for someone to also be a coach. So we have micro-credentials where you can learn coaching, right? You get your New York State accreditation to become a coach. So maybe that's another little kind of side hustle you can do while you already have a job. Other things, personal training. I referred to accounting, so I know that sometimes students are working in accounting systems. They need a little bit more sprucing up in their skills, bring them kind of up to speed with today's standards, and they'll come and take some accounting and some business courses. I used to work with health studies students as a success coach, and I always thought it was interesting that they could take a phlebotomy course, earn 4 credits, and have a job at the end of that semester. So, those are some of the things I refer to when I'm talking about that. Mm-hmm. I also have worked closely with a school in East Rochester where they had some people employed as paraprofessionals or teacher's aide in the classroom, and then come to find out you were saying they might need some credit hours. Well, I was unaware of that. Thankfully, when I was a paraprofessional, I was grandfathered in. I was not aware. But I do know that there are certain things that they need to have now in their file. So DASA certification, SAVE certification, child abuse mandate reporting. So we have one course, HED 204. It's a 3-credit class, and all of those can be achieved in that one class.
So, wow, a micro-credential can be as little as one class.
Correct. Yep.
And then how big do they get micro-credentials?
Well, it depends on what you're looking to pursue. I mean, we have some in like tourism, hospitality management. Perhaps you want to buy a barn and set up wedding events, but maybe you don't need to take 2 years to earn a degree to be able to do that. You've got maybe an adult, maybe you've assisted in this type of vocation before, but you want to be able to show potential clients that you have a skill and that you have some credentials in operating the tourism, hospitality, setting up events and things like that.
So that's like, what, 3-4 classes?
I think so. We have everything from 1 semester, 2 semesters. Sometimes it's 2 classes each semester. So I did print out a little copy of all of our variety of courses that we've got musical theater, so you can take 6 classes. The coaching certificate I talked about, personal training, that's 1 class to become a personal trainer. We talked about phlebotomy, professional sales, so all kinds of things to help a student kind of, explore a career path that might work for them without having to come to a college for 2 years.
I was just looking at that musical theater.
I know, yep.
So I'm just picturing, like the poor gym teacher in the high school where they say, "Can you direct the play?"
Oh, and that happens. Yes, sirree. Yeah, absolutely.
But they could take that musical theater micro-credential
absolutely.
And in a year or less have a firm foundation.
Absolutely. They have the experience, and then they have the paper to go with it, so they also have, that resume enhancer.
And something you put right on your resume. So really awesome options. So let's say that I was an NSD student and I'm listening to the podcast and thinking, wait, I got a couple of credits somewhere and I might be close to something. Like, how would I check? Is there a process for figuring out, what my credits might work towards?
Absolutely. So if you are an NSD student here with us at Genesee Community College, we can show you how to use a tool that we provide our students. It's called a degree audit tool. So it's right in their MyGCC student portal. Mm-hmm. So even if they're NSD, they have unfettered access to some of these college resources right at their fingertips. And any one of us is happy to help them explore what their previous courses, what their current maybe NSD classes, how that can maybe translate into a pathway that they might not even have planned. So for sure.
Yeah, degree works.
Yep,
the magic degree works.
Yep.
Yes.
There's a what if tool there so students can explore, hey, I've got a few classes in this and a few classes in this and maybe some business and maybe some health. What is the quickest pathway to a 2-year degree? Because now I'm thinking, I'd like to get that 2-year degree. Well, we can explore that. What if we look at this program? What if we look at it through this prism? What if we explore that? And so it really provides students with some fantastic options.
Right. They had that at SUNY Empire when I was going there.
Yeah.
For
All SUNY schools are supposed to use it.
supposed to use. Oh, okay. I did not know
It
that.
is a SUNY tool. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. But they had it at Empire when I was there, and I discovered that I could get a certificate before I got my master's,
Oh, nice.
which was nice
Yep.
because now I have the graduate certificate to put on my resume, and I can see, I'm working towards that path.
Yeah. And many of our certificate programs, which are 1 year, or our micro credentials, are really built in many of our 2-year degree programs. So, yeah.
Nice.
Probably intentionally so.
Well, it makes a nice little stepping stone, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm going to take a couple classes, and then I'm going to get a micro credential, and then I'm going to get a certificate, and then I'm going to get a degree, and it makes it seem like not such a big thing.
Right. You eat the elephant one bite at a time. Yep. Absolutely.
Exactly. So, all right. So we've talked about, which students might be NSD or why they might come in that way and what they might be missing. And so I want to talk about and ask about matriculation. This is a big, long word. Okay. We use it all the time in academia. And can we talk a little bit about matriculated students versus NSD students?
Absolutely. I had to learn that when I became an advisor at Genesee Community College, because people think, you're in this environment and they think that other people use these language, but we don't. So matriculated is any student that is pursuing a degree. So you would come in and say, hey, I'd like to pursue a degree in health studies, or maybe I'd like to pursue sports management. That would be, you would come in, you'd apply, and you'd apply under matriculated, and it would be our goal to help you achieve your goal.
Okay.
As NSD would be the not seeking a degree. So as we said, those students may be seeking a degree elsewhere, and maybe they're considered NSD here with us for a semester or two.
Right. So lots of options. When does it make sense for a student to be NSD, and when should they consider picking up matriculated status? I mean, if I understand correctly, matriculated status doesn't cost anything.
Right.
You don't have to pay to be matriculated.
Right.
So how do you help students think through that choice?
Well, again, it harkens back to my whole philosophy about, education, career paths. It's not a one size fits all. So it's really important that you have a conversation with an individual and really learn what their end game is. What is their goal? They may want to be in a matriculated program. Maybe it makes them eligible to accept some student loans, but they don't have to be committed to that 2-year pathway. If they find they get these credentials and it's just enough what they need to stop out for a minute and get their career and do what it is they are wanting to pursue, that's our goal, and our job is to try and help them discover what it is they'd like to do. Tell them about all their options, and they get to decide what works best for them. So maybe they don't need all the 2-year plan. Maybe they, as we talked about phlebotomy or some other things. I didn't even talk about CAD, that engineering blueprint reading, that's another one course that a student has some credentials and marketable skills, essentially. It depends. Does a student come to us because they want marketable skills? Do they want to get some skills to get right out there and work? Or do they think maybe they want a longer path? Maybe they want to become the doctor of physical therapy. So that's a little bit longer. Just a tad.
Just a little bit longer with a path straight through A and P.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
All right. So what do students gain when they matriculate, when they make that, that they sign up? I mean, you mentioned financial aid, but what other options open up for our matriculated students?
So matriculated students are really assigned an individual student success coach based on their program of study. So they would work with them, again, to help them discover their end goal. Are they looking to transfer after a semester? Fine. You're kind of housed within a program. You don't have to stay married to that plan. Again, that, one size does not fit all. You have some opportunities and options, and it's our goal to help you discover that and help you discover what's best for you and your path.
Right. And you talked about the degree works and the what if tool.
Right.
So the what if tool can be looking at different micro credentials, but it can also be switching degree programs?
Absolutely. You can start thinking you want to, kind of dabble in business. Maybe you want to do marketing, social media, but you take that one accounting class and you're like, you know what? I think I have what it takes. I can take business calc and I'm going to go forward and become a CPA. There's pathways to whatever a student wants to do. And that's the thing. I like to help students see the light and find out that things are attainable. I don't take no. I'm like, let's make this work. So, but we talked a little bit about some of the other things I didn't. Yes, financial aid. Students are eligible for financial aid if they're housed within a degree program. It doesn't mean they have to be full-time 12 credit hours. You can be 6 credit hours. You can be a part-time student and still be eligible for financial aid, for some scholarships. If you're full-time, you're eligible to live on campus in our student housing or play our sports. So those are some of the other little perks of being a full-time student here at GCC.
Or at least a matriculated student here at GCC. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Cool. So this is probably the most important question we're going to ask all night. So students listening and thinking, okay, there's all these options. I can be NSD. I can go for a micro-credential. I can go for a certificate. I can go for a full degree program. I could, go to another college and then come back for a course, or I could cross-register for a course. There's all of these kinds of different options, and maybe they didn't even know these options are out there, and it's still kind of swirling around in their head. And so students who are listening and want to explore those options or figure out what makes sense for them, where do they start?
I'm so glad you asked. So I really do. My passion is really helping students. I'm sure, hopefully, you're able to get that from me as we're having these conversations. But if a student should have any question at all, don't hesitate to reach out to our admissions office. You can always email us. I know that students take courses after hours, and so we're not open after 4:30, but don't hesitate to email. You would reach out to us at admissions with an S at genesee.edu. So based on your concern, your question, inquiries would be forwarded to the appropriate admissions counselor to reach back out to the student. So I know that sometimes it had been my experience as a student success coach that anyone kind of classified as NSD, they kind of seemed to be on their own. They didn't necessarily they were working independently. They were signing up for a class. They didn't realize they were eligible for all the resources as a part-time student, as a matriculated student, or as a full-time student. That NSD student has access to all of our free tutoring, our resources. And so that's important information to get out there. But, so that's why don't hesitate to reach out to us in admissions so we can put you in touch. And then we can explore these pathways, share with you. We have over 75 different degree programs. We have 30 different certificates. And as I said, micro-credentials are becoming the new marketable skill. And so people are now pursuing that pathway as well.
Right. It's a great thing to put on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. Put those badges up there.
Yeah. And you mentioned tutoring. So all of our services then, yes. So like wellness center and access and accommodations and library services and LibGuides and all of the other services that we offer also
Absolutely.
For all of our students.
Yep.
Lovely.
Absolutely.
That's a great help. So it sounds like you're going to find a path for everybody.
Well, right. And their path may look very different from someone else's path. Like I said, maybe they're here to take one class and go right out with their newfound marketable credential and work a while. And then guess what? You've earned it. It stays in your college transcript. You can take a few semesters or a few years out, but that's going to stay housed there. So if you choose to come back later on, we can always explore those credentials earned, those credits earned, and see where that might place you moving forward.
All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. So that brings us to the end of our episode 13, NSD versus degree. And Deb, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
And thank you for helping us see what's really possible for our NSD students. And we appreciate your time and your expertise.
Oh, thank you so much. If anyone has any follow-up questions specifically for me, I'm happy to assist. You can reach me at D as in Deborah, A for Ann, and Falk. It's like walk, but with an F. Falk at genesee.edu. That's GENESEE.edu.
Right. And we will put that in the description of the podcast episode as soon as YouTube sees fit to save it.
Perfect.
So it will be right there.
Perfect.
All right. So I'd like to give everybody one step for this week. So your one step for this week, if you're a GCC student, is to log into that degree audit, log into DegreeWorks and take a look and see what you've got. If you're not sure what you're seeing, you're not sure what it means, ask some questions. You can reach out to Deb. You can reach out to the admissions team. You can talk to your success coach. You can even talk to somebody in online learning. And you might be closer to a credential than you think. Mm-hmm. I know you talked about being a stop-out student, and I was also, and I was certainly much closer than I thought I was to going back and getting my bachelor's degree. I ended up being 2 classes away.
Oh, my goodness.
2 classes. That's all I needed, and I hadn't even realized I was that close.
Right.
So that's our challenge for this week is go into DegreeWorks and play around with what if. And remember, this conversation doesn't end here. Like, if you're listening on YouTube, leave a like, drop a comment about what stood out to you in this episode, and if you've got more questions, bring them to our next live stream. We really do read the chat while you're going along. And I see already we have a comment from Susie. Says this was a great session, and thank you, Susie.
Thanks, Susie.
I hope you've heard something a little bit new and different and hopefully encouraging tonight. The question, the episode doesn't stop there. The conversation doesn't stop there. We're watching and we're listening and we're answering, and we do want to hear from you. Mm-hmm. So I'm Lloyd from the online learning team, and thank you for listening to Study with Me. Make sure you do subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss next week's episode. And now we get to share with our next guest our mantra. We have a mantra with the podcast.
Oh, good.
That we end with.
Okay.
And are you ready? Our mantra is progress, not perfection.
That's right. Yep, I like it.